Good morning, class of 2025. I was actually fortunate enough to meet Psycho when I was a senior lieutenant, young captain. It was right after the Gulf War, and he's going around talking and briefing various units on his experience. He made a fantastic selection. He was a great officer. Again, love the enthusiasm. Great to be here. 2 hours, maybe, in a Thunderbird Pass. We'll see what the weather looks like going forward, but I'm hopeful. I got my fingers crossed. I want to start out a little bit non-standard. I'm going to reference a number of cadets as I walk through here, but I did want to give a shout out to a third class cadet that I know very, very well, Cadet Gabriel Ralston. I coached Gabriel and his two brothers for about 5 or 6 years in competitive robotics. It quickly became apparent to me that he was the sharpest of the three brothers, even though he was the youngest. The other two had to settle for the Naval Academy. So 2 weeks into the job, and I expect I'll have to be apologizing to a couple of Navy leaders when I get back to DC on Friday. But just kidding, we love our sister services. So General Alvin and Mrs. Alvin, General Saltzman and Mrs. Saltzman, and General Bonfine, thank you, and Mrs. Bonfine, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for all the distinguished guests and everybody who has made this day possible for the cadets. Obviously it's a day that the cadets are going to remember for their entire lives. I'd also take a little bit of time to thank the support infrastructure for all the class of 2025. To all the friends, family, mentors, sponsors, who rightly have made significant sacrifices to help the cadets get into the academy, get through the academy, help them with all the decisions they've made throughout their time here, where they're going to go, what field they want to lead into. It's great. People would never get through these sorts of hard courses without that support, and I want to thank you all for that. Unfortunately, it's not going to change. That support infrastructure is going to be required going forward. Although I was active duty officer for 5 years, I was a spouse for over 20 years. My wife is a retired Air Force officer, and although we loved our experience, pretty much all of it, but we love pretty much all of our experience, things are not going to get easier. Although there's a lot of work here at the Academy, getting through the Academy, you should be extremely proud of that. The pressure, the pace is going to continue to improve or continue to increase as you train, deploy, and fight in the operational Air Force. And that support infrastructure is going to be just as important today as it is going forward as it is today. So thank you very much for everybody and all their support. So to classes 2026. A little slow on their response. 2027. 2028. Well, there you go. Remember that they had more warning than the 2026 class. Remember that everything you do in your remaining time as a cadet is pointing you to this graduation day, the time when you will make your own impact on the mission. Good luck, and I look forward to being here when you graduate over the next coming years. Now, back to class of 2025. They're winning so far. Today is a culmination of 4 years of hard work. Your journey started with a clap of thunder on 2024 on June 2021. I'm not hearing any thunder, but we're getting a little bit of rain, I think, like you got. In the middle of processing in the storm, standing under the footsteps of Vandenberg Tower. You kept going despite all the adversities we could think to throw at you. We gave you a motto: never quit, never settle. And you haven't quit, and you haven't settled. That persistence got you to this point through all the challenges you've faced. You've overcome athletic rigors. As the superintendent pointed out, the 2-1 win ratio over the other services, I'm sure you're appreciating it now, but you will continue to appreciate that throughout your career. That is a battle that never ends. That is a discussion that never ends. After 25, 30 years, you'll still be talking about that. Gymnast Patrick Hoops won back-to-back national championships in the pommel horse. Scott Rocket won Division I title with an air rifle. That's got to be one of the best names I've ever heard, Rocket. Many of you competed in intramural sports throughout the wild weather Colorado could throw at you. You also overcame academic trials. You not only passed Chemistry 100 and Astro 310, but some of you went far beyond. You secured patents for autonomous robotic systems, you tested hypersonic vehicles, and you launched payloads to the International Space Station. I think the superintendent told me this morning that over the last 6 years, there was 36 patents awarded to the Academy cadets. That's just unbelievable. And some of you are continuing on to graduate school, including Margaret Mayhem, who won and was awarded the Marshall Scholarship. Others are headed off to programs at MIT and other institutions. Like a young lieutenant that I knew, 1998 graduate of the Academy, Colonel and now astronaut Nick Hague, who worked for me about 25 years ago as a brand new cadet graduate out of MIT. Some of you may know him. He is the US astronaut that managed to survive a Russian rocket blowing up underneath of him. And then a couple years later, just last year, was commanded the launch, the mission that went up and rescued the 2 astronauts that were stranded on the International Space Station. So a long pedigree out of the Academy for sure. You overcame military challenges, your 4-degree year, and recognition. You stepped into leadership roles and made this place your own. Sometimes you even went a little too far and had to march a few tours. Something about Ziggy. I wanted to ask, but I was told I don't want to ask and I don't want to see. You overcame combat survival training in Pinyon Canyon. Now, I have to admit that when I went through survival training, that was not the most enjoyable time in my early career, but it teaches you a lot. The important thing to remember is that there is nothing your class couldn't overcome. In class of 2025, it's exactly that tenacity we need. We need you. We need you because the Air Force and Space Force that you are about to join are not the same services that I, your instructors, AOCs, and coaches joined. You are joining a Department of the Air Force in transition. For the past 25 years, we've been focused. All right, I get it. Took me a second. That was not on purpose on my part. For the past 25 years, we've been focused on low-intensity conflict in the Middle East, but no longer. This administration has made its national security focus crystal clear. Number 1, defend the homeland. Number 2, deter China in the Indo-Pacific. Class of 2025. That one was on purpose. The Indo-Pacific will be your generation's fight, and you will deliver the most lethal force that this nation has ever existed, or we will not succeed. The character of war is changing, today more rapidly than ever before. You can clearly see, not only in the Ukraine skies, but in the skies over Israel and the Red Sea. 30 years ago, when I was a second lieutenant, only a handful of nations could precisely strike targets hundreds of miles away. Today, even a group of Yemen rebels can employ anti-ballistic missiles at range. To meet this new reality, we must rebuild our military, and we are now in the midst of the largest modernization in our history. We are developing and procuring new systems in nearly every mission area in both the Air Force and the Space Force. And in some cases, we are creating new missions that weren't even thought about 5 or 4 years ago when you entered the Academy. We are treating space like the contested environment it is. We are building the most lethal airborne platforms in history. We are building low-cost drones, and we are building sensors and battle networks to stitch it all together. We are also training in this environment. Next month, we will have the largest exercise since the Cold War, and that exercise will be in the Indo-Pacific. Why are we going to do that? We focus on the Indo-Pacific because it is a threat unlike anything we have ever faced. This is not late-stage Cold War where we had a decisive advantage over the Soviets. That's what I came into. This is not the unipolar moment in the 1990s when the America stood unchallenged. This is not the global war on terror in the 2000 and 2010s where we enjoyed freedom of the skies. Today's competition with China is wide-ranging and it is unpredictable. There will be no sanctuaries, and many of our assumptions about air and space power will change. If we continue to operate as we have in the past, we will fail in the future. And we cannot afford to fail. We must be ready at all times. Every minute of every day, airmen stand watch in missile launch control centers, guardians stand watch on satellite control centers, pilots stand watch in alert facilities. We stand watch because the defense of the homeland is a no-fail mission. It is Air Force F-22s that still intercept Russian bombers in the North Arctic, a mission that we've been doing for decades. It is the Space Force's sensors that detect incoming missiles or other threats in space. And this mission is only getting more important. That is why we are at the forefront of designing and building the President's Golden Dome for America initiative, with a guardian, General Gutlein, in the lead. And if our nation should call, we are ready at a moment's notice to deploy, to fight, and to win anytime, anywhere, with the most advanced systems on the planet. We have a long legacy of being the first to fight. America's offensive response to the bombings at Pearl Harbor was the Doolittle Raid, 30 seconds over Tokyo. It's actually the first book I remember reading. American bombers were our first force to respond to North Korea invasion in the South in the 1950s. In Afghanistan, air power was on hand from day one, supporting special operations in their march to Kabul. No matter what the conflict of the future looks like, air power and space power will be at its leading edge, and you must be ready for it at all times. Class of 2025. You may not see it now, but there is a reason why we put you through the paces these last 4 years. There is a reason why the Academy is as hard as you have seen it to be. As you look back at your time here, you will see how well it prepared you for what it will take in the future. How well it has forged you into leaders of character that we need our Air Force and Space Force. Everything you have been through these past 4 years has been for this purpose. There is a reason why you receive bachelor's degrees of science, because the systems we are acquiring and operating are some of the most advanced and sophisticated systems in the world. The cornerstone of our force lethality will be your skill set and knowledge. I understand about half of you are going on to be rated careers. Your ability to effectively employ the systems we have today and the new systems we are delivering will be the decisive advantage we have over our adversaries. I also understand that just over 100 of you will be joining the Space Force. Our youngest service is also one of the most technical. Space actually is hard. To succeed, we need smart, tenacious leaders across the force. And I believe space will be one of the asymmetric advantages the U.S. has over our adversaries. Others will become missileers, maintainers, logisticians, cyber defenders, engineers, acquirers, analysts. All those are needed to make this great machine of an Air Force operate. No matter your job, we will find what you've learned here critical. Data is now ubiquitous. Robotic systems are increasingly capable. AI is more than just a buzzword. Our services were born of technology, and I commit to you that we will put what you've learned here to use. There are no shortages of problems for you to solve. I've spent quite a bit of time in the Pentagon, maybe more time than I would have liked in the Pentagon. It is a place where critical decisions are made, but the Pentagon doesn't fight wars. Young officers, lieutenants, captains fight wars. Lieutenants like you, in about 2 hours, have the drive, the skill, the fearlessness to try new things. Lieutenants can innovate. Lieutenants need to innovate. They can solve problems, and they can win tomorrow's war. Lieutenants like Chris Pritchard, who deployed to the Middle East last year shortly after arriving at his first operational squadron. On his first combat mission, he dropped 4 GPS-guided bombs as part of a complex strike package. Later in the same deployment, he shot down a Houthi drone over the Red Sea. Despite the dynamic circumstances, he executed exactly as he and thousands of other young aviators had been trained to do, to accomplish the mission. Captains like Jonathan Novak, who was a key engineer on a multi-billion-dollar orbital program. He has not only wrote an award-winning thesis while getting his master's at MIT, but then directly applied that knowledge into building the coursework for orbital warfare and engineers to follow. Lieutenants like Mara Cage, who commanded flight and manages a global supply of hundreds of different spare parts for our B-52 fleet. Readiness is a challenge. People like that are critical to make sure that our forces have what they need to fight. Captains like Nick Forrest, who was asked to serve at the National Reconnaissance, where I most recently worked a couple weeks ago. He is one of the dozens of young officers that we have deployed around the world to bring data science to the fight. He is currently embedded in the White House Situation Room, building models and bringing intelligence products to the most senior leadership in our government. In fact, throughout its history, some of the Air Force's proudest achievements have been accomplished by lieutenants, young people who make their dreams into reality, despite the challenges. John Boyd, legendary fighter pilot and father of the F-16, formulated most of his ideas about advanced fighter combat tactics while in Korea as a lieutenant. Ira Bong, America's ace, who eventually scored 40 aerial victories during World War II, first became an ace as a lieutenant. In fact, Hap Arnold, the father of the Air Force, was a second lieutenant when he talked his way in to the Wright brothers aeronautical training course, undeterred by advice that he should not join the aviation duty community only because if he wished to commit suicide. He became the U.S.'s military's first pilot and laid the groundwork for everything you see here today. Innovation and initiative is in our DNA. The young people like yourselves are the sources of many of our proudest achievements. Congratulations, class of 2025. Welcome to the Air Force and the Space Force. We are counting on you.